The massive colony ship New Haven drifted silently through space, its hull gleaming under the light of Kepler 442. Inside the ship, 50,000 people slept in cryopods, dreaming of their new home. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the blue and green planet grow larger through the windows. After 12 years of traveling through the dark void, they had finally reached their destination. "Captain, all systems are ready for orbital insertion," said Navigation Officer Amy Chen, her fingers dancing across the control panel. The ship hummed with quiet energy as it prepared to enter the planet's atmosphere. Jake nodded and pressed the ship-wide communication button. "Attention all passengers, this is your captain speaking. We have arrived at Kepler 442b. Begin wake-up procedures for all colonists. Welcome to your new home." Throughout the ship, thousands of cryopods began to open with soft hissing sounds. People stretched and yawned as they woke from their long sleep. Families hugged each other, children laughed, and everyone pressed against the windows to see their new world. Dr. Lisa Harper moved through the medical bay, checking on the colonists as they woke up. She smiled as she watched 8-year-old Katie Sullivan bounce excitedly in her parents' arms. The little girl had bright red hair and freckles, and she could not stop talking about all the adventures she would have on the new planet. "Mom, do you think there are aliens down there?" Katie asked her mother, Mary, who was still groggy from the long sleep. "I don't know, sweetheart," Mary replied, brushing Katie's hair. "But if there are, I'm sure they'll be friendly." John Sullivan, Katie's father, picked up his daughter and carried her to the window. "Look at all that green, Katie. We're going to build you the best treehouse in the galaxy." The planet below them was beautiful. Vast oceans sparkled blue under 2 small suns, while green forests covered most of the land. Mountain ranges stretched across continents, and white clouds drifted peacefully through a clean atmosphere. It looked like paradise. Colony Administrator Ryan Brooks worked with his team to coordinate the landing. They had chosen a spot near a large freshwater lake, surrounded by fertile plains and protected by gentle hills. The location was perfect for building their first settlement, which they would call Haven Ridge. The landing took 3 days. Shuttles flew back and forth between the ship and the planet's surface, carrying people, supplies, and equipment. The colonists worked together to build temporary shelters while construction crews began work on permanent buildings. Katie Sullivan was one of the first children to set foot on solid ground. She ran through the tall grass, laughing as she chased colorful butterfly-like creatures that floated through the air. Her parents watched her play, grateful that their daughter would grow up under open skies instead of inside a cramped spaceship. "This place is amazing," said Dr. Harper to Captain Morrison as they watched the settlement take shape. "The air's clean, the water is pure, and there's no sign of dangerous wildlife. We couldn't have asked for a better world." Jake smiled, but something felt wrong. "It's almost too perfect, Lisa. A planet this good should have intelligent life. Where is everybody?" His question was answered 3 months later. The colonists had built a thriving settlement by then. Haven Ridge had neat rows of houses, a school, a hospital, shops, and farms. Children played in the streets while their parents worked to build their new lives. The 2 suns provided plenty of warmth, and crops grew well in the rich soil. One morning, while Katie Sullivan was playing near the edge of town, the sky suddenly filled with strange ships. They were long and silver, shaped like needles, and they moved without making any sound. The ships landed in a field outside Haven Ridge, and the colonists gathered to watch. "Everyone stay calm," Captain Morrison announced over the settlement's speakers. "This is what we've been preparing for. First contact protocols are now in effect." Jake walked toward the alien ships with Ryan Brooks and a small team of diplomats. His heart pounded with excitement and fear. Behind them, the entire population of Haven Ridge watched from a safe distance. A door opened on the largest ship, and creatures stepped out that took Jake's breath away. They were tall and thin, about 8 feet in height, with bodies that looked like they were made of living crystal. Light seemed to flow through their transparent skin, creating beautiful patterns of color. They moved with grace and dignity like dancers. The leader of the aliens approached Jake and spoke in a voice that sounded like music. "I am High Counselor Vex Thai of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been watching your settlement with great interest. Jake stepped forward and tried to keep his voice steady. Welcome to Haven Ridge. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the human colonists. We come in peace and hope to be good neighbors. The alien's crystalline face showed what might have been amusement. How primitive. You speak with sound waves instead of direct thought transmission, but we find your species curious enough to study. Over the following weeks, the Zephyrians visited Haven Ridge regularly. They showed the humans amazing technology, devices that could heal injuries instantly, machines that created food from raw elements, and tools that could shape metal with just a thought. In return, the humans shared their art, music, and stories. Katie Sullivan was fascinated by the aliens. She would sit as close as possible during their visits, staring at the way light moved through their crystal bodies. The Zephyrians seemed to tolerate her curiosity, though they rarely acknowledged the children directly. They're so beautiful, Katie told her mother one evening. But they seem sad. Why don't they ever smile? Mary Sullivan tucked her daughter into bed and kissed her forehead. Maybe they just show emotions differently than we do, sweetheart. Not everyone is the same. The cultural exchange ceremony was planned for the settlement's 6th-month anniversary. The humans prepared their best food, music, and displays of art and technology. The Zephyrians brought examples of their most advanced devices, including weapons that could cut through solid rock with beams of pure energy. On the day of the ceremony, the entire population of Haven Ridge gathered in the town square. Tables were set up with human and alien technology side by side. Children ran between the displays while adults talked with the Zephyrian visitors. Katie Sullivan wore her best dress and had flowers in her red hair. She moved through the crowd with wide eyes, amazed by all the wonderful things on display. Her parents were busy talking with other adults, and she wandered away from them without thinking. Near the edge of the square, a Zephyrian energy weapon sat on a display table. It was beautiful, looking like a sculpture made of blue crystal and silver. Metal. Light pulsed through it in hypnotic patterns that drew Katie like a magnet. She looked around to make sure no adults were watching, then reached out and gently touched the weapon's surface. It felt warm and smooth under her small fingers, and the light inside grew brighter at her touch. The weapon discharged without warning. A beam of pure energy shot from the device and struck Katie in the chest. She screamed and fell to the ground, her dress smoking from the burn. The smell of burned flesh filled the air as her parents rushed toward her. "Katie!" John Sullivan shouted, dropping to his knees beside his daughter. She was barely breathing, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow movements. Burns covered her small body, and her bright eyes were filled with pain and confusion. Dr. Harper pushed through the crowd and immediately began working to save Katie's life. "Get her to the medical center now," she shouted. "Ryan, clear a path." As they carried the injured child away, Jake Morrison turned to face High Counselor Vexthai. The alien stood calmly nearby, showing no concern for what had happened. "What have you done?" Jake demanded, his voice shaking with rage. The Zephyrian's crystalline features remained unchanged. "The young creature touched our technology without permission. The fault lies with your species for failing to control your offspring properly. Perhaps this will teach you better discipline." Jake stared at the alien in disbelief. "She's just a child. An innocent child. Your breeding stock should be kept away from important matters," Vexthai replied coldly. "Consider this a lesson in proper behavior." The ceremony ended immediately. The colonists rushed to the medical center while the Zephyrians returned to their ships without another word. In the hospital, Dr. Harper worked desperately to save Katie's life, but the alien weapon had caused damage unlike anything she had ever seen. Katie Sullivan lay unconscious in the hospital bed, her small body fighting for life while her parents held vigil beside her. Outside, the rest of Haven Ridge waited and prayed for the little girl who had touched something beautiful and been burned by it. None of them knew that this moment would change everything. None of them understood that the Zephyrians had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They had harmed a human child and shown no remorse. The warning had been given, though the aliens did not recognize it yet. Humanity had been shown. what lay beneath the beautiful crystal surface of their new neighbors, and they would not forget. Dr. Lisa Harper had not slept in 3 days. She stood beside Katie Sullivan's hospital bed, checking the monitors that beeped softly in the quiet room. The 8-year-old girl lay still, her breathing shallow and weak. The alien weapon had burned her badly, and nothing Lisa tried seemed to help. John and Mary Sullivan sat in chairs beside their daughter's bed. John held Katie's small hand while Mary whispered stories about the adventures they would have when she got better. Neither parent had left the hospital since the accident. "How is she, doctor?" Mary asked for the 100th time, her voice barely a whisper. Lisa looked at the charts and felt her heart break a little more. "She's fighting, Mary. Katie is the strongest little girl I've ever known. She's fighting hard." But Lisa knew the truth. The alien energy had damaged Katie's organs in ways that human medicine could not fix. The burns were healing, but something deeper was wrong. The girl was dying, and there was nothing Lisa could do to stop it. Captain Jake Morrison visited the hospital every day. He would stand in the doorway watching the Sullivan family, and his anger would grow stronger. The Zephyrians had not visited since the accident. They had not asked about Katie or offered to help. They acted like nothing had happened. "Any word from the aliens?" John Sullivan asked Jake during one visit. Jake shook his head. "Colony Administrator Brooks has sent them messages every day. They refuse to respond. It's like they don't care at all." "They don't," Mary said quietly. "That creature called our daughter breeding stock. He said it was our fault for not controlling her properly." Jake's hands clenched into fists. He had served in the military before becoming a ship captain, and he knew the look of an enemy when he saw one. The Zephyrians were not friends. They were something else entirely. 2 weeks after the accident, Katie Sullivan died in her sleep. Her parents were holding her hands when her breathing simply stopped. Dr. Harper tried everything she could to bring the little girl back, but it was too late. The alien weapon had taken too much from her small body. The entire colony mourned. Katie had been everyone's little sister, the bright spark who made people smile even during the hardest days of building their new home. Now she was gone, and her death left a hole in the heart of Haven Ridge. They buried Katie on a hill overlooking the settlement, under a tree that grew blue flowers like the ones she used to chase. Her gravestone was simple white marble with her name and the words, "She touched the stars." The whole colony came to say goodbye. High Counselor Vexthai arrived at the settlement the day after the funeral. He brought 20 Zephyrian soldiers with him, all carrying energy weapons. They marched into the town square like they owned the place. "Humans of Haven Ridge," Vexthai announced, his musical voice carrying across the settlement. "The Zephyrian Collective has decided that your presence on this world is no longer acceptable. You will move to a designated area within 7 days." Colony Administrator Ryan Brooke stepped forward, his face red with anger. "This is our home. We have every right to be here under galactic settlement law." The alien leader's crystalline features seemed to glow brighter. "Your laws mean nothing to us. We are the rightful owners of this world. You are trespassers who have proven you cannot control your young or respect our property." "Property?" Ryan shouted. "You're talking about a little girl who died because of your weapon." The creature's death was unfortunate but necessary. Perhaps other human breeding pairs will learn from this example and train their offspring better. "Jake," Morrison pushed through the crowd, his military training taking over. He stood face to face with the alien leader, close enough to see the patterns of light flowing through the creature's crystal body. "Her name was Katie," Jake said quietly. "She was 8 years old. She liked flowers and butterflies, and she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. She was not breeding stock. She was a child." "Irrelevant," Vexthai replied. "You have 7 days to relocate, or we will move you ourselves." The Zephyrians left without another word, their silver ships disappearing into the sky. The colonists stood in the square, stunned by what they had heard. Many of them were crying. Others looked angry enough to fight. "What do we do?" asked teacher Linda Martinez, who had taught Katie in her classroom. Jake looked around at the faces of his people. These were farmers and engineers, teachers and shopkeepers. They had come to build a peaceful life, not to fight a war. But the aliens had given them no choice. We prepare, Jake said simply. 3 days later, the Zephyrians demonstrated their power. A beam of energy struck the colony's main water treatment plant, turning the building into a pile of smoking rubble. Without clean water, the settlement would die within weeks. "This is your second warning," came a message from the alien ships. 5 days remain. The colonists worked frantically to build emergency water systems, but everyone knew it was not enough. The aliens could destroy anything they built with their superior weapons. The situation seemed hopeless. That was when the Zephyrians made their greatest mistake. On the 5th day, they decided to send a message that would terrify the humans into total surrender. They chose to target Jefferson Elementary School during the morning evacuation drill, when all the children would be gathered together outside. Principal Steve Parker was leading the drill when the alien ships appeared overhead. "Children, please line up quietly," he called out. "This is just practice, nothing to worry about." 200 children stood in neat rows on the playground, ranging in age from 5 to 12. Their teachers stood with them: Linda Martinez, Carol Johnson, Bob Wilson, and 8 others. It was a normal Tuesday morning at the school. The first energy beam struck without warning. Steve Parker saw the light coming down from the sky and threw himself toward the children, trying to shield them with his body. The beam vaporized him instantly, leaving nothing but a shadow burned into the ground. "Run!" Linda Martinez screamed, pushing her students toward the school building. But there was nowhere to go. The Zephyrian ships surrounded the playground, their weapons charging with deadly light. Beam after beam struck the running children. 6-year-old Tommy Chen fell first, his small body crumpling to the ground. 9-year-old Emma Rodriguez tried to help a younger child and was caught by the next blast. 7-year-old Alex Johnson was calling for his mother when the light took him. Linda Martinez died trying to shield her kindergarten class. Carol Johnson fell while carrying an injured student to safety. Bob Wilson was hit while attempting to lead children through the school's back door. The attack lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, 15 children lay dead on the playground. 30 more were badly injured, their bodies burned by alien energy. 5 teachers had given their lives trying to protect their students. The Zephyrian ships hovered over the devastation for a moment, then broadcast a message across the colony. "This is what happens to inferior species who refuse to obey. Your breeding facility has been eliminated. Surrender now or face complete destruction." The aliens left, satisfied that they had broken the human spirit forever. They had shown the colonists that resistance was useless. Soon the survivors would pack up and move to whatever reservation the collective decided to give them. But Counselor Vexthai had badly misjudged his enemy. Throughout Haven Ridge, humans who had never thought about violence began to change. Dr. Harper stared at the dead children in her hospital and felt something cold and hard grow in her chest. Teacher Amanda Foster looked at her empty classroom and began planning revenge. Farmer Bill Jackson put down his tools and picked up his old military rifle. Captain Morrison called an emergency meeting in the town hall. Every adult in the colony came, their faces grim and determined. Many were crying, but their tears were not from sadness alone. They were from rage. "They killed our children," Jake said quietly. "They murdered 15 innocent kids and called it a lesson. They destroyed our school and called it eliminating a breeding facility." The crowd murmured with anger, but Jake raised his hand for silence. "The Zephyrians think they have won. They think we will surrender and crawl away like beaten animals. They believe we are too weak and primitive to fight back." Jake paused and looked around the room at the faces of his people. "They are wrong." Colony Administrator Brooks stood up. "What are you suggesting, Jake?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Jake replied. "I'm declaring martial law and mobilizing every person in this colony for war. The Zephyrians want to see what humans do when their children are threatened. Let's show them." The vote was unanimous. Outside, the first Zephyrian occupation force was landing, confident that the humans had been properly terrorized into submission. They had no idea that they were walking into the fury of an entire species whose young had been slaughtered. The colonists began to prepare for something the galaxy had never seen before. They would teach the Zephyrians a lesson about the consequences of harming human children. The war was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the massacre at Jefferson Elementary School. Haven Ridge no longer looked like a peaceful farming colony. The streets were filled with barricades made from overturned vehicles and scrap metal. Gardens had been torn up to build weapon workshops. The playground where children once laughed was now a training ground where adults practiced killing. Colonel Frank Anderson had not worn a military uniform in 15 years. He came to the colony to retire and grow vegetables in his garden. But when the aliens killed the children, something awakened in the old soldier that had been sleeping for a long time. Now he wore his uniform again and commanded an army of farmers, teachers, and shopkeepers who had become warriors. Remember, the aliens think in straight lines, Frank told a group of new fighters gathered in what used to be the community center. They expect us to line up and fight them face to face like gentlemen. We are not going to do that. Patricia Williams raised her hand. She had been a mining engineer before the war, but now she built bombs from farming chemicals and construction explosives. What about their energy shields, Colonel? Our bullets just bounce off. Frank smiled grimly. That's why we're not going to shoot at their shields, Patricia. We're going to be smarter than that. In the back of the room, Roberto Gonzalez listened carefully. He used to cook meals for the colony's restaurant, but now he mixed poisons from local plants that could kill Zephyrians if they got into their crystal bodies. The chef had become a maker of death, and he was very good at his new job. The first major attack came on a Tuesday morning. A Zephyrian patrol of 20 soldiers marched down Main Street, their energy weapons ready and their crystal bodies gleaming in the sunlight. They expected to find frightened humans hiding in their homes. Instead, they found empty streets. Danny Moore watched the aliens from his hiding spot in the old bank building. He had been a hunting guide before the colony was attacked, and now he used those same skills to track alien patrols. His radio crackled softly as he whispered into it. Tiger 1 to all units. 20 targets moving east on Main Street. Weapons hot, shields active. Execute Thunder Run in 30 seconds. The Zephyrians reached the middle of town when the first explosion went off. Patricia Williams had buried her bombs in the road itself, hidden under loose stones that looked like normal street repairs. The blast threw 3 aliens into the air, their crystal bodies cracking from the impact. But that was just the beginning. From every window, every doorway, every rooftop, humans opened fire. They did not aim for the aliens' protected torsos. Instead, they targeted joints, fingers, and the thin crystal that covered the creatures' necks. Helen Foster coordinated the attack from her radio post, calling out targets and directing fire from her hidden position in the old church tower. Left flank, 2 targets behind the fountain. Helen's voice crackled over the radios. Right side team, target the leader with the broken arm. The aliens tried to return fire, but their enemies had already moved. By the time the Zephyrians turned, their weapons toward a window, the human shooter was gone, already running to a new position. This was not the kind of warfare the aliens understood. Karen White crawled through the drainage tunnels that ran under the town. She had been a school teacher before the war, but watching her students die had changed her into something else. Now she planted explosives under alien feet and disappeared before they knew what hit them. Above ground, the battle raged for 20 minutes. When it was over, 18 of the 20 Zephyrians were dead. The 2 survivors fled back to their base, their crystal bodies cracked and their formation broken. The human casualties were 0. Colonel Anderson gathered his fighters in the old grocery store after the battle. Many of them were still shaking from adrenaline, but their eyes were bright with victory. That was beautiful, said Marcus Bell, who used to design sound systems for concerts. Now he built sonic weapons that could shatter alien crystal armor with the right frequency. Did you see how confused they were? They had no idea what to do. This is just the beginning, Frank warned them. They'll come back with more soldiers and better tactics. We need to be ready. Dr. Lisa Harper had been working day and night in her makeshift laboratory, studying pieces of dead Zephyrians that the fighters brought back from battles. She made a discovery that would change everything. I found their weakness, she announced at the next War Council meeting. Their crystal bodies conduct sound waves like tuning forks. If we hit them with the right frequency, we can shatter their armor and cause massive internal damage. Marcus Bell leaned forward with interest. What kind of frequency are we talking about, Doc? Something around 18,000 hertz, but it has to be very precise. Too high or too low, and it won't work. I can build that, Marcus said, his mind already working on the design. Give me a week and some electronic parts and I'll have weapons that can crack those crystal bastards like eggs. While Marcus worked on his sonic weapons, Tony Russo was solving a different problem. The colony blacksmith had figured out how to reverse engineer captured Zephyrian energy weapons. It was not easy work, but Tony had always been good with his hands. The power source is some kind of crystal matrix, he explained to Colonel Anderson, while showing off his latest creation. I can't make new crystals, but I can modify the ones we take from dead aliens. This rifle should give us firepower equal to theirs. Frank hefted the weapon, surprised by how light it was. How many can you make? With the crystals we have now? Maybe 50, but every alien patrol we kill gives us more materials to work with. The war began to turn in humanity's favor. Small groups of human fighters would ambush alien patrols, kill them quickly, and disappear before reinforcements arrived. The Zephyrians, who were used to facing enemies in formal battles, could not adapt to this new kind of warfare. Susan Clark had been a nurse before the war, but now she fought alongside the soldiers while still treating their wounds. She carried both medical supplies and grenades, saving lives and taking them with equal skill. During one battle, she dragged 3 wounded fighters to safety while shooting aliens with a captured energy weapon. Nancy Adams proved that librarians could be just as dangerous as soldiers. She had spent years organizing information, and now she used those skills to coordinate intelligence gathering. Nancy's network of observers tracked alien movements throughout the region, providing Colonel Anderson with detailed reports on enemy strength and positions. The psychological warfare was just as important as the shooting. Dr. Richard Stone had been a counselor who helped colonists adjust to their new life. Now he crafted messages designed to break alien morale and spread fear through their ranks. The Zephyrians communicate through some kind of telepathic network, Richard explained during a strategy meeting. If we can capture one alive and force it to broadcast our message, we can reach every alien in the area. Maria Santos, who used to paint landscapes of their beautiful new world, now created propaganda that turned alien stomachs. Her artwork showed human fighters standing over piles of dead Zephyrians, with messages written in the alien language that roughly translated to, "Your children will pay for ours." The aliens' confidence began to crack as their patrols stopped, returning. High Counselor Vexthai received reports that made no sense to his military mind. How could a few thousand primitive humans be defeating his advanced warriors? The answer came during the battle at the water treatment plant. The Zephyrians had destroyed the original facility, but the humans had built a new one in secret. When a large alien force came to destroy it, they found themselves trapped in a carefully planned ambush. Colonel Anderson had positioned his fighters in a circle around the facility, with overlapping fields of fire and multiple escape routes. When the aliens landed their ships, they walked directly into a killing ground. Marcus Bell's sonic weapons shrieked across the battlefield, shattering crystal armor and sending aliens to their knees in agony. Tony Russo's modified energy rifles cut through alien formations like knives through paper. Patricia Williams' explosives turned the landing zone into a crater filled with broken crystal and twisted metal. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 200 Zephyrians lay dead around the destroyed facility. More importantly, the humans had captured High Counselor Vexithai himself. The alien leader was badly wounded, his crystal body cracked in dozens of places. Dr. Harper kept him alive while Dr. Stone worked on breaking his mind. They needed information about alien weaknesses, base locations, and military strength, but they got something even more valuable. Under interrogation, Vexthai revealed the location of the main Zephyrian command center. It was built inside a mountain 50 miles from Haven Ridge, protected by hundreds of soldiers and the most advanced weapons in the alien arsenal. Colonel Anderson looked at the intelligence reports and smiled. Gentlemen and ladies, I think it's time we paid a visit to the neighbors. The humans began planning their final assault. They had gone from helpless victims to deadly predators in just a few months. The aliens who had murdered their children were about to learn what happened when you made humanity angry. The colonists of Haven Ridge were no longer farmers and teachers. They had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. News of the human resistance spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On distant Zephyrian worlds, military commanders stared at reports that seemed impossible. How could primitive humans be defeating their most advanced forces? The stories sounded like fiction, but the evidence was undeniable. Commander Zekval of the 4th Fleet received the emergency transmission while orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld. The message was from High Counselor Vextai himself, but the words made no sense. The humans are not what we believed. The message crackled through static. They are death incarnate. Do not underestimate them. Do not harm their young. We have awakened something terrible. The transmission cut off after that, leaving Zekval staring at his communication screen in confusion. What could have frightened Vextai so badly? The High Counselor was one of their most experienced military leaders, a veteran of dozens of successful conquests. On Kepler 442b, the humans were preparing for their final assault on the Zephyrian Command Center. General Jake Morrison stood on a hill overlooking the mountain fortress, studying it through electronic binoculars. The promotion from captain had come from the colonists themselves, who needed a leader they could trust. "It's a tough target," said Colonel Frank Anderson, joining Jake on the hilltop. "Natural rock walls, energy shields, and at least 300 defenders. They chose their position well." Jake lowered his binoculars and looked at his old friend. "How many people do we have ready to fight?" "About 800 combat-ready fighters, plus another 200 in support roles. It's not enough for a direct assault, but we're not planning a direct assault." Behind them, the army of Haven Ridge prepared for battle. These were not professional soldiers, but they had learned to fight with a fury that scared even themselves. Susan Clark checked medical supplies while cleaning her rifle. Nancy Adams coordinated intelligence reports while sharpening a knife that had once been used to cut vegetables. Dr. Richard Stone worked with his psychological warfare team to prepare the most important weapon of all. They had been broadcasting messages into the alien command center for weeks using captured Zephyrian communication equipment to send fear directly into enemy minds. "The recordings of dying Zephyrians are working," Richard reported to General Morrison. "Our monitoring equipment shows increasing stress patterns from inside the mountain. Their morale is cracking." Maria Santos showed Jake her latest propaganda artwork. The images were horrible and beautiful at the same time, showing human fighters as avenging angels bringing death to alien murderers. The pictures were designed to be broadcast into Zephyrian minds where they would create terror and despair. "Remember, this is not just about winning a battle," Jake told his assembled fighters the night before the assault. "This is about sending a message to every alien species in the galaxy. They need to understand what happens when you harm human children." The final battle began at dawn. Patricia Williams had spent 2 weeks sneaking explosives into the mountain through old mining tunnels. The bombs were hidden throughout the Zephyrian base, connected to timers and remote detonators. When the first explosion shook the fortress, the aliens knew their safe haven had become a trap. Colonel Anderson led the main assault force up the mountain slopes while General Morrison coordinated the attack from his command post. The humans moved in small groups using the rocky terrain to avoid alien energy weapons. They climbed like mountain goats, appearing and disappearing among the stones. Marcus Bell's sonic weapons screamed across the battlefield, their terrible frequency shattering crystal armor and driving Zephyrians mad with pain. The aliens tried to respond with their own weapons, but the humans were never where they expected them to be. Danny Moore led a team of infiltrators through the mountain's ventilation system. The former hunting guide now tracked aliens through their own fortress, appearing behind enemy lines to plant explosives and disappear again. His radio calls guided other teams to weak points in the alien defenses. Tiger 7 to command, east wall is clear. Moving to secondary target. Copy Tiger 7. Watch for crossfire from blue team. Helen Foster coordinated the complex battle. From her mobile command post, her voice calm and steady as she directed the chaos of war. The former communications expert had become the nerve center of the human assault, connecting every fighter into a single deadly organism. Inside the mountain fortress, the Zephyrians began to panic. Their technological advantages meant nothing against enemies who refused to fight by the rules. Humans appeared in corridors that should have been empty, struck from directions that should have been impossible, and vanished before retaliation could arrive. Karen White crawled through air ducts that were too small for Zephyrian bodies, planting Dr. Harper's biological weapons in the alien life support systems. The former teacher had become an angel of death, spreading poison through enemy air and water supplies. Tony Russo's modified energy weapons cut through alien defenses like they were made of paper. The blacksmith had created weapons that could penetrate Zephyrian shields by using their own technology against them. Each shot was perfectly calibrated to shatter crystal armor and destroy the creatures inside. The battle raged for 12 hours. Room by room, corridor by corridor, the humans fought their way deeper into the mountain. They showed no mercy and asked for none in return. This was not war as the galaxy understood it. This was extermination. Roberto Gonzalez used his knowledge of alien biology to create traps that turned the fortress into a house of horrors. Poisoned air, contaminated water, and chemical weapons that ate through crystal armor like acid. The former chef cooked death for his enemies, and they died choking on their own fear. Dr. Lisa Harper fought alongside the soldiers while treating wounded humans. She carried both medical supplies and weapons made from her own research into alien weaknesses. When a Zephyrian tried to surrender, she looked into its crystal eyes and remembered Katie Sullivan's funeral. There were no prisoners taken that day. The command center fell when Patricia Williams detonated her final charges in the mountain support pillars. The entire fortress shook as tons of rock collapsed, crushing hundreds of aliens under the weight of their own stronghold. The few Zephyrians who survived the collapse emerged to find human fighters waiting for them with weapons ready. General Morrison walked through the ruins of the alien base, stepping over the crystal remains of his enemies. The mountain fortress had become a tomb, and every grave held a message for the galaxy to hear. Search for communication equipment, he ordered his fighters. We need to make sure our message reaches every Zephyrian world. They found the main transmitter deep in the mountain's core, somehow still functioning despite the destruction around it. Nancy Adams worked with Marcus Bell to modify the device, preparing to broadcast humanity's warning across the stars. The message was simple and clear. General Morrison stood before the transmitter, his uniform torn and bloody from 12 hours of fighting. Behind him, human fighters held the heads of dead Zephyrians while the ruins of the alien fortress burned. This is General Jake Morrison of the human colony Haven Ridge, he said into the transmitter. Your forces attacked our settlement. You killed our children and called them breeding stock. You declared war on humanity when you harmed our young. Jake paused, looking directly into the camera that would broadcast his words across the galaxy. Every Zephyrian military force on this planet has been destroyed. Your soldiers are dead. Your commanders are dead. Your High Counselor is dead. This is what happens when you threaten human children. Behind him, Maria Santos held up her final artwork. It showed the Earth rising over an alien graveyard, with the words, "We remember our young," written in every known galactic language. Tell your leaders what you have seen here, Jake continued. Tell them that humanity protects its children with a fury that knows no limits. Tell them that we will follow you to the ends of the galaxy if you harm our young. Tell them that this warning will be delivered to any species that makes our mistake. The transmission ended, but the message continued to spread. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations received the broadcast and saw what remained of the Zephyrian occupation force. The images were clear and terrible. An entire advanced military had been destroyed by what most species considered primitive humans. On distant worlds, alien leaders called emergency meetings. Military commanders studied the battle recordings, trying to understand how such a complete defeat was possible. Scientists analyzed human psychology and came to disturbing conclusions about what happened when this species felt threatened. The warning spread from system to system, carried by traders and diplomats who whispered the story in spaceports and government halls. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, and the message was written in alien blood. Do not harm human children. The consequences were now clear for everyone to see. The colonists of Haven Ridge had won their war, but they had also started something much larger. They had become the galaxy's newest apex predator, and every species in known space would soon learn to fear the protective fury of aroused humanity. The warning was clear, and it echoed across the stars. 5 years had passed since the last Zephyrian died on Kepler 442b. Haven Ridge no longer looked like the peaceful farming colony it once was. The settlement had grown into a fortress city, with walls that could stop energy weapons and towers that watched the skies for threats. Every building was designed to become a fighting position. Every street could be turned into a killing ground. The children who survived the war were no longer children. They had grown up learning to shoot before they learned to read, to fight before they learned to play. These young people knew that the galaxy was a dangerous place where aliens might come to hurt them at any time. They were ready. General Jake Morrison walked through the memorial garden that had been built where Jefferson Elementary School once stood. The garden was beautiful, with flowers from Earth and native plants that grew blue and purple in the alien soil. But at its center was something that reminded everyone why they could never let their guard down. The memorial wall was made of black stone, with the names of every person who died during the Zephyrian attack carved deep into its surface. Katie Sullivan's name was at the top, followed by the 15 children who died at the school and the 5 teachers who tried to save them. Below their names were the words that had become Haven Ridge's motto: "We remember our young." "Sir, the Earth fleet has been detected at the edge of the system," reported Lieutenant Carol Davis, who had been a kindergarten teacher before the war. Now she commanded the colony's early warning network, watching space for any sign of approaching ships. Jake nodded and activated his communication device. "All units, this is General Morrison. Earth fleet has arrived. Prepare for diplomatic contact but maintain defensive positions. We don't know what they want yet." The Earth fleet was massive: 12 heavy cruisers, 40 destroyers, and hundreds of support ships. It was the largest military force that Earth had ever sent beyond the solar system, and it had taken 5 years to reach Kepler 442b after receiving the colonists' original distress call. Admiral William Hayes commanded the fleet from his flagship, the UES Defender. He was a career military officer who had spent his entire life preparing for humanity's expansion into space, but nothing had prepared him for what he found at Haven Ridge. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the colony," reported Communications Officer Beth Turner. They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions." Admiral Hayes frowned. "Demanding? These are Earth colonists. We're here to rescue them." "I don't think they see it that way, sir. Their transmission includes weapons, lock warnings, and threat assessments. They're treating us like a potential enemy fleet." The Admiral activated the main communication channel. "Haven Ridge Colony. This is Admiral William Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call 5 years ago and have come to provide assistance and evacuation if needed." The response came immediately, and the voice was cold and controlled. "Admiral Hayes, this is General Jake Morrison, military commander of Haven Ridge. Your assistance is not required. Your evacuation offer is declined. State your true intentions or withdraw from our system." Admiral Hayes stared at the communication panel in confusion. "General Morrison? The colony administrator was supposed to be Ryan Brooks. And what's this about a military commander?" "Sir," interrupted Lieutenant Commander Sarah Wilson from the intelligence station, "I'm reading massive military installations throughout the colony. Defensive positions, weapons emplacements, training facilities. This place has been turned into a fortress." The Admiral decided to visit the colony in person. He took a shuttle down to the planet's surface, accompanied by a small diplomatic team. What he found there shocked him more than any alien threat could have. Haven Ridge was a military base disguised as a city. The people who met him at the landing pad were polite but armed. Children who should have been playing carried weapons with the easy confidence of experienced soldiers. Adults moved with the controlled alertness of warriors who had seen too much combat. General Morrison met the Admiral at what used to be the town hall but was now clearly a military command center. Maps covered the walls. showing defensive positions and patrol routes. Communication equipment hummed constantly, monitoring space for threats. "Welcome to Haven Ridge, Admiral," Jake said, offering his hand. "I apologize for the cold reception, but we've learned to be careful about unexpected visitors." Admiral Hayes looked around the command center, trying to understand what he was seeing. "General Morrison, what happened here? Our last communication from this colony was a peaceful farming settlement. Now I find a military installation." "What happened is that we learned the truth about the galaxy," Jake replied quietly. "We learned that there are alien species out there who see human children as acceptable targets. We learned that we are alone out here, and we must be strong enough to protect ourselves." The Admiral sat down heavily in an offered chair. "Tell me everything." For the next 6 hours, Jake told the story of Haven Ridge. He spoke of Katie Sullivan, touching an alien weapon and dying from its discharge. He described the massacre at the elementary school and the war that followed. He showed the Admiral recordings of the final battle and the message they had broadcast across the galaxy. When the story was finished, Admiral Hayes sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "How many people are left in the colony?" 30,000, Jake answered. "We lost 20,000 during the war and the years that followed. But every person who remains is a trained fighter. Every man, woman, and child knows how to kill aliens if necessary." "And you don't want to return to Earth?" Jake shook his head. "Earth is soft, Admiral. Earth is safe. Earth has never seen its children murdered by alien monsters. We can't go back to that life. We are something different now." The Admiral spent a week at Haven Ridge, meeting with the colonists and seeing how they lived. He watched children as young as 8 practicing with weapons. He saw teenagers who could track alien ships across space and adults who had turned gardening tools into instruments of war. Dr. Lisa Harper still ran the medical center, but now she also manufactured biological weapons that could kill any known alien species. Colonel Frank Anderson trained new fighters while developing tactics for fighting enemies they had never seen. Every person in the colony had multiple skills, and all of those skills were designed for war. "We've created something here that Earth needs to understand," Jake explained to the Admiral on his final day. "We've proven that humans can survive anything the galaxy throws at us, but only if we're willing to become something harder than we were before." Admiral Hayes returned to his fleet with a report that would change Earth's entire approach to space colonization. The peaceful expansion plans were quietly shelved, replaced by military protocols and defensive strategies. Haven Ridge had shown Earth what it needed to become. The colony's message had spread far beyond the Zephyrian worlds. Across the galaxy, alien species shared the story of the humans who had destroyed an entire military force to avenge their children. The details grew with each telling, but the core message remained the same. Do not threaten human young. Trade routes began to avoid human space. Diplomatic contacts became formal and careful, with strict protocols about how to interact with human civilians, especially children. Some species banned their citizens from any contact with humans at all, fearing that a single mistake could bring terrible consequences. The Galactic Council, which had never acknowledged humanity's existence before, sent an official message to Earth. It was a simple document that recognized human territorial claims and established basic diplomatic protocols, but between the formal language was a clear understanding. Humanity was now considered a major power, despite having only one colony. On Haven Ridge, life continued with its strange mixture of beauty and danger. Children grew flowers in gardens, built over alien graves. Farmers worked fields that were also artillery ranges. Teachers educated students who would graduate with both academic degrees and military ranks. George Taylor, who had been an accountant before the war, now ran the colony's intelligence service. He monitored communications across the galaxy, tracking any mention of humanity or threats to human settlements. His reports went to Earth as well as to Haven Ridge, helping both worlds prepare for future challenges. Dr. Claudia Rivers had been a veterinarian, but now she was the colony's chief strategist. She planned defensive operations and developed protocols for dealing with new alien species. Her greatest success was the child protection doctrine, which established automatic response procedures for any threat to human young. The doctrine was simple. Any species that harmed a human child would face immediate and total retaliation from all human forces. There would be no negotiations, no mercy, and no survivors. The galaxy had been warned, and the warning was enforced by people who had already proven they meant every word. Admiral Hayes established a permanent Earth military base on Haven Ridge, but the colonists remained in command of their own world. The two forces worked together, with Earth providing supplies and reinforcements while Haven Ridge provided training and experience in alien warfare.